everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Genealogy Pep Talk, a podcast. My name is Suzanne, and I'm a library specialist with Arapahoe Libraries here in Colorado. I have two other staff members with me who are my fellow friends on this podcast. There is Cyndi, a library specialist, and Katie, a career services, is it librarian? Librarian.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
This podcast is about gathering some tips and tricks for your family search journey for whenever you get stuck on searching for an ancestor, because it does happen. We also share with you some experiences of our own, along with lots of anecdotes and stories in researching our own families. So I bet you're wondering what today we're going to talk about. Today we're going to talk about free resources. Everybody likes the word free. In everything. So that's what we're going to talk about. What kind of genealogy resources are free for you to peruse through and learn from and do your research.
And fall down those rabbit holes.
Oh, rabbit holes. Watch out.
Just call me Alice.
So, Katie, what do you have on your list?
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about today, I had taken some classes last year from the National Genealogical Society, and they have so much information and so many resources available for people that I really wanted to talk about it and bring it to light, because I've been doing genealogy on and off for a long time, and it was something that I just found out a couple years ago, about. So I wanted to share it with everybody, and I was looking at their website, and they have a list of free genealogy websites, and there are actually 18 websites listed on here.
Wow.
Which I was like, oh, cool.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Some of them we've already talked about and we already know about, like Family Search, the U.S. Census Bureau, but there's also the National Archives and Records Administration, which is part of the government. Library of Congress, which, by the way, if you have never visited the Library of Congress, it is so cool.
It's a big library, isn't it?
It is huge. It has several buildings, and I was there a couple years ago when I was in library school, and you weren't supposed to get a library card, a reader's card as a souvenir, but guess what? We all did.
Nice.
So I have a reader's card from the Library of Congress. They expire after 2 years, but hey, it's a cool souvenir, so... Then there's like the New York Public Library, which is a ginormous library. And of course, being in New York, you've got Ellis Island and all those things out that way. So U.S. GenWeb Project. There's also the World GenWeb Project for records outside the U.S. They have links to the research guides and ship passenger lists. So if you're looking for any immigration records, or you can go there. Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana, apparently has several special collections, including African American and Native American gateways. So that's a cool resource I didn't know about.
Yeah, it is. So how do you spell Allen? Is that with an E or an A?
An E, A-L-L-E-N.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Freedmen's Bureau. That's also a federal agency. Access Genealogy has a lot of state data. Jewish Gen.
So wait a minute, go back to Freedmen. What's Freedmen about?
An agency of the U.S. Department of War to help slaves who were set free after the Civil War, and also poor whites with provisions, clothing, and fuel. So that would be those kind of records.
Okay.
Billion Graves.
Yeah.
Well, we were chatting about that the other day, and
we couldn't figure out, is it million or billion? But it's a billion.
Billion.
It's like that Powerball this week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Can we win that and buy all the genealogy books, please?
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Also, Find a Grave.
Yeah, I like that one. And let me tell you why I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Find a Grave is great because you'll have pictures. You'll have pictures of the gravestone and of the area. You can look up the actual cemetery and get information on that. But the gold star day, in my opinion, is when someone has written a biography of the person who has passed on, because you can glean a lot of information from that biography, be it 2 sentences or several paragraphs. So always make sure to look at Find a Grave of your people, because you might get some more information, because it'll say maybe the address, maybe where the person worked, the church, what kind of things they volunteered for, or how many kids they had, and even more so in grandkids and so forth. So it's always a good thing to look at Find a Grave.
That's wonderful. And I didn't really know about the biography. It makes me think I should go back and write one for some of my family members if they don't have one. But they sometimes have an obituary attached, don't they? Or do they not?
They might. I'm trying to think if I've seen any.
I think they do. I think I've come across some that you can click on the link.
Right.
And the obit is attached. But as you said, Katie, that's probably maybe done by a family member.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who knows where that obit can be found.
I think especially ones that are like online, they're really easy to link to their.
And what's kind of also pretty cool is if you're looking for a bunch of family names, you're looking at your mother's maiden name and you're looking at your dad's name, i.e. your name, and it'll say, okay, look at all those names, and then look at all those names. And then you can kind of do some research if there's any kind of thing that looks, people look related or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So always look at that as well.
Fabulous. Let's see. There's just a couple more here. Legacy.com. It's a great place to find obituaries. I've often helped patrons find obituaries there.
And obituaries, by the way, give so much information.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes misinformation. If the family member who's writing it doesn't always know, but at least it gives you some really good places to start.
Yeah.
I.e. siblings, wife's name, kids and grandkids. Plus, if it's a son who's surviving, they give the wife's name and that kind of thing. Or if it's the daughter, they'll give her married name. So you can keep on searching.
And even if in lieu of flowers or whatever, of where they want things donated to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of a little hint. Maybe it's to a cancer fund. Do they have cancer? Or maybe their wife or spouse had cancer or something like that. Maybe they're doing it that way. But that's kind of a neat thing, too. It's like, what's their passion project, if you will.
Right. Yeah. That reminds me that my great uncle just passed, and they asked for, in lieu of flowers, to donate to the public library.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Look at that.
I have a good family.
Yes. That's something we should all keep in mind, ladies.
Yes, exactly. I'll leave my millions to the library.
Yes.
Afrigeneas, AFRIGENEAS.com. And it's got a lot of African American genealogy. So it's got a beginner's guide, details on the best sites for African American records, resources and research, and directions on finding slave data, vital records, a history of slavery, etc. There's also forums and chats. So I had never heard of that one, but that could be a really useful one for people.
Man, that sounds like a real comprehensive source.
Yes, I'm thinking we should link that on our website. Write that down.
Would be a good idea.
Yeah.
RootsWeb, that's an oldie but a goodie. Cyndi's List, I think a lot of us have heard of that, but maybe not everybody.
Right.
And she spells it the wrong way.
Yeah,
CYNDI.
Yeah, CYNDI. Yeah. And then the Society of American Archivists has a good website with a lot of information on and tutorials. So many different resources. And then, of course, on the National Genealogical Society website, there's all kinds of other things too. And they have links to a lot of forms that you can download for free. They have lists of different societies and organizations. So like state genealogy societies, Daughters of the Revolution, other societies like that.
Yeah.
Conferences and events. You can become a member to the site. They have a store. And I think I said, I took a couple classes through here. So they have some classes. If you're looking for a comprehensive basic genealogy class, they have some really good classes that aren't too expensive, actually. They're maybe a couple $100, I think. They're pretty reasonably priced for a fairly comprehensive class. I highly recommend checking out the National Genealogical Society.
Yeah. NGS.
NGS.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they've got links to some other societies. So
And that is not too pricey to purchase a membership.
yeah, and I'm just looking here on the member benefits. They have the NGS magazine that you can get in print or digital form.
Right.
They have NGS monthly, so it's like a monthly newsletter that they send out. And then they have NGS quarterly, which is delivered either by print or digital access. So you also get a discounted registration for the Family History Conference, and you can get free Family History Skills course to take online anytime, and discounts for other genealogy courses. I think what I took is the Foundations in Family History classes, but they have so many different resources and forums, and you can contact them, and they're really good about helping you out. So really awesome organization.
That's not a rabbit hole.
Not a
That
rabbit
is
hole.
about 500 rabbit holes.
That's right.
Each one of those,
Yeah.
I can just see myself going down there
Yeah.
and staying down there for a really long time.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention American Ancestors. I believe that they're based out of Boston, and it's a great resource for people who have longtime American ancestors. Their website is americanancestors.org. It's run by the New England Historic Genealogical Society. They have also a lot of free webinars and online courses and things like that. So another whole bunch of great resources. And they also have a link to create a tree.
What's that?
It's an American Ancestries.
Oh,
Get it?
that's good.
Very clever.
Yes. So they just have a little tool that you can actually type in the information and create a little tree, like a pedigree chart. You can get a guest membership account in order to do that. So that's one cool thing. Of course, you wouldn't have all the features, but you could do some things with that guest membership account.
Gotcha.
So
That sounds like a great resource, too.
Okay. What do you have, Cyndi?
I found a couple things that I thought were really interesting that I didn't know about before. If you're looking for some really localized biographies of people, maybe community leaders or something from a long time ago, there are a couple websites that are right out there under your nose that I've never thought of to use for genealogy. And one of them is Google Books.
Oh, right. Right.
I mean, I've read like out of print books on Google Books,
sure.
but I didn't realize that they have different, like this one I'm looking at was, biographical sketches from 1909 from people in St. Louis. Somebody just gathered together a lot of the biographical sketches. The trick is to figure out the proper keywords to type in, but they are out there. So that looks really interesting. There's this one I see, St. Louis, the fourth city from 1764 to 1909.
Oh, right.
wow.
Yeah. So that just sounds very interesting. And then also for very localized things. And there's also another resource that has been under my nose all the time, and it is another place where I find out of print books that I like to read, and that's archive.org. And you just type in Internet Archive, and it will take you there. And I've always read these books that are really hard to find anywhere. And type in kind of those same things, and you will find a lot of records on there or different books that are very localized, which would give you information that you just can't find on a census report, those kinds of actual records.
Right.
And then also I'm getting really into the localized stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of our grandparents or whatever came from these tiny little towns that people have never even heard of, or only family members. You can go on to, as I said, Chronicling America. That's Chronicling with an ING, America, on the Library of Congress website. And you can do the all digitized newspapers tab. And you can scroll down and get to a state that you might know or where your ancestors, grandparents lived. I'm just pulling up Colorado because we're in Colorado. And it's not just, the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They have so many here.
Yeah.
The Daily Tribune from Florence, Colorado, beginning in 1903. The Delta County Chief. Delta's way out on the western slope, just a tiny little town, beginning in 1883. The Delta Independent, I guess. That must have been a big newspaper rivalry in Delta.
Right.
Starting in 1886. Springfield, which is this really tiny town, agriculture town, the Democrat Herald. So all of these are the Denver Jewish News might be something for people with Jewish heritage.
Yeah.
The Denver Labor Bulletin,
Okay.
starting in 1915. So, if you had an ancestor that was involved in labor or any labor strike,
Right.
that might be some information you never find anywhere else. So I think that is really interesting.
And you know what? As I was joking before of, hey kids, this is a newspaper and what it is. It's because I think a lot of younger people don't know really that there were a lot of newspapers, because that was the communication. They didn't have any phones. They didn't have a landline even.
They didn't have Twitter. I mean, this was the Twitter.
Right. And, maybe lucky you had a telegraph, in the town, but maybe not. So you relied on those, 3 or 4 pages of news. And then, I was looking at one and it does, and it has, Mary Lou, she is sick today because she's got bronchitis. And then, but Jebediah over yonder at, one of this 40-acre farm area, just their mule had to be put down, and things like that. And it's just
That's
this
what
little,
I was just going to mention.
little information like that, but that's big news for a little town, because that's how you find out.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting.
Mrs., and they never put the woman's first name. It's always Mrs. Joe Smith.
Right.
Yeah.
Mrs. Joe Smith is hosting the Ladies Society tea in her parlor on Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
And it sounds ridiculous, but I love going to historical newspapers and just looking at all of this. And what's also fun is the prices of things.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, like a house.
Yeah.
Was something like $1,500.
Yeah.
Who heard of that? That's maybe that's a studio apartment here in the Denver metro.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a whole house with a lot and a little garden back there, and probably either a stable or a garage, depending on the time period.
Right.
But yeah.
The house that you bought out of the Sears catalog, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
That is. And another thing that I thought was really fascinating is called historicmapworks.com. And you can type in, Delta County, Colorado. And a lot of these maps that are there, they list properties, who owned the property, and they're all segmented out by, sections of land, and then the range inside that section. So a section of land is 640 acres. It's a square mile.
Oh, wow.
And then they divided those up into smaller sections and then into ranges, which are even smaller blocks. And it's very interesting to see, Joe Blow he owned all the land around there. And then just Mrs. John Smith, never her first name. We never know what her first name was, owned this little corner lot or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. If you have an address of your ancestors to see, did they own it at that time?
Right.
And to me, that's just very fascinating. It's like, and it's all very organized, like plat maps, township maps.
Look at the family members, the siblings, or maybe father, son, or, father, daughter. Once in a while, you'll have a woman who owns a piece of land. But majority, of course, is the male family members. But some of them, they could have siblings, and they might own several corners of the town.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting to see, too.
Yeah, and in small towns, I'm thinking about, like, where my mom grew up, town of 300, if you look, then chances are half the town is going to be ancestors or related somehow. Mm-hmm. So it could be a way to possibly find other relatives if you just look at who else is in the town.
Yeah, who else was around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I just think that's fascinating. And it's, again, another way to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Another rabbit hole.
Yeah. Another rabbit hole.
Okay, I'm going to back up for a moment. I mentioned the Internet Archive. That's archive.org, where I read all these fun little books that nobody else can get. And I just thought of something else that's really cool and kind of a deep dig. You can also type in different city directories. And you think, why would I want to look at a city directory? Because it'll just say John Smith, 13 Elm Street, and their phone number. Well, they don't. A lot of these city directories in days gone by have so much more information. I just have one here, the Des Moines City Directory from 1922. And it contains a list of alphabetically arranged business firms, private citizens, street and avenue guide. So if you wanted to actually see where your ancestor lived in that part of town, that would be available. They even list the city and county officers, the terms of court, churches, colleges, public and private schools, buildings, banks, incorporated institutions, and then all these different societies. Like it says secret and benevolent societies. I'm not quite sure I want to look up the secret society. Is that like the Masons or the Knights of Columbus or something?
Might be, yeah.
So, yes. So they have a lot of the stuff. And I have actually looked at these, and it doesn't just say the person's name. It will also say what their occupation is. Like laborer or banker or things like that. And it does list the other members in the household, including if someone's boarding there. A lot of people used to make money by boarding other people, and it will list the boarder's occupation. So it will give you a whole lot. It kind of gives you a little picture of what that town was like.
Yeah. Sounds good. This is a lot of information and a lot of free information. But here's a big one. Your main free resource for genealogists and other things is your neighborhood library. So we here at Arapahoe Libraries, arapahoelibraries.org is our website. Don't forget to look us up because we have a tab called Research. Click on it, and then you'll see Genealogy and Local History. Click on that tab, and then you will see Genealogy Resources. And in the resources, you'll find, well, you're listening to it, our Genealogy Pep Talk, a podcast. But you'll also find links to Ancestry Library Edition and, of course, My Heritage, which is also another one to check out. Also free. You have to come into the library to use those. But FamilySearch.org, you can do that at home, and that's free. There's no charge to that. So just keep those in mind. We also have genealogy books, nonfiction books. We have kids' books on how to do genealogy. We certainly have history books. So come to your neighborhood library and check us out. And with that said, we have one more thing from Cyndi.
Yeah, and below this, check out the show notes, and we will put links to all of these websites that we have been talking about. So you can just scroll on down, click, and you're there.
And because we were doing a lot of fast talking, so you may not have had a pencil or pen nearby, or feathered ink, quill, or feathered quill and ink. Never mind. Okay, so anyway, let's just wrap this up. I'm trying to be funny. I'm usually funny all the time, but not today. Okay, so our disclaimer, as we love to share with you, and to add to the fun, the three of us are not certified genealogists. We are just three people who are sitting around and having a gab fest about genealogy. We hope that some or all of this information helps you along the way to finding your family. Thanks for listening. Okay, say goodbye, ladies.
Goodbye, ladies.
Never gets old. We'll see ya.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.